Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Ikigai Leadership. My name is Dhru Bee, and I am joined by my good friend here, Rachel Lee. Rachel is an amazing designer and branding expert. Thanks for joining us today, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be diving into this with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so you have a really cool story, and I think that that's one of the reasons why I wanted to share that with people because it's something that it's inspirational in many ways, on many levels, as we talked about. But I'd love for you to share that with folks and let people know kind of what your journey's been like to get where you are here. Where'd you start, and what are you doing these days?
Absolutely. So, the first thing I like to say about myself is growing up, I was the art kid. Today, I am still the art kid. I don't think there's a lot that's changed about that, but the way that I show that to the world has definitely evolved. And growing up as the kid, I remember very clearly that I loved making things for people. And it started off with me making a Mother's Day card for my mom. And knowing that my mom loved daisies, I put daisies on the card. And to this day, my mom still has that card. It's on her desk. She brings it to work. And every time she looks at it, it just makes her smile. And I remembered as a kid when I saw my mom's reaction to this thing that seemed so simple that I created for her, but it affected her on such a profound level. I saw that and I was like, I want to do that for a living. I don't know what that's going to look like or what that translates into from a professional standpoint, but I want to make things for people that creates an impact that makes them smile and makes the world a better place. So, as I sort of explored what that meant for me, I naturally went to study design in art school. I was the art kid again. And I very quickly landed myself a full time graphic design job at a local marketing company. And that was as far as I had planned my life. That was supposed to be my dream job. I was supposed to be happy, work there for 40 years, and then retire. That was literally all that I had planned, except for the fact that I didn't account for the fact that I wouldn't be happy or
Mm,
remotely fulfilled at my full time job. Because so it turns out, it wasn't just the act of making things that made me happy. It was seeing the impact that it was making, talking to the people, asking them about their problems and coming up with a creative solution. Turns out I actually liked the people side of the design more than the actual design. Me pushing pixels for 8 hours a day turns out just didn't really cut it for me. And about 5 months into the job, I knew that I had to get out because my creative spirit, I kid you not, I could feel it slowly shriveling and dying every time I showed up to work. I was 24 at that time when I and the alarm bells were going off. I could feel myself withering like a plant that was just not getting enough water. And I
mm.
knew that I needed to plan an exit strategy, except I had no idea what that would be. And thankfully, I had a friend at that time who was self employed, and he just asked a very simple question. Hey, why don't you just do your own thing? You have this creative ability, and it's very easy. I'm going to use air quotes for this. Very easy to get projects and just maybe even start earning some side cash on the side of that. And I thought, like I've never thought of it before, but I like to think that I'm pretty good at what I do. And if I'm good, then yeah, of course, it should be easy to make money. So that was literally my intro into the world of business. And I would say freelance in the beginning, where I just dabbled on the side of my full time job. I was
Mhm.
totally in exploration mode, had no idea what I wanted or what to expect. I just knew I was searching for my thing. So outside of my full-time job, I would basically after hours go to in-person networking events. This was 2018, 2019. So this was pre-pandemic where everything was still in person. And it was, I remember that was really challenging time, like straddling the full-time job, part-time freelancing. I basically had this crazy schedule where I would wake up at like 6 in the morning, transit an hour and a half to my full-time job. On transit, I would be getting back to messages and setting up coffee meetings and literally standing like sandwiched during rush hour between all these people on my laptop working on freelance projects. I get to my full-time job, blast through my stuff during the day, and use my work computer to continue working on my freelance projects. And then the moment I got off work, transit downtown to like a networking event, like not eat dinner and not. And then by the time I get back home, it's like pretty much close to midnight. I do what I need to take care of myself, sleep, and then rinse and repeat. And that was the pace that I lived at as I was trying to explore and figure out what I wanted. And very quickly, I realized that I loved my freelance stuff a lot more than my full time job. And
Yeah.
it got to this point where at the start of 2019, I had explored enough to know what I wanted, but I definitely didn't build a strong enough foundation for my business to make the strong transition. But I did the impulsive thing where, you know, how when it's a new year and you're like, I need a change. I don't care. I'm just going to make it happen.
Yeah.
At the start of 2019, I literally had that moment where I decided I just had to quit my full time job. I knew from the business side of things I was not ready, but I trusted that I would be able to figure it out once I just cut ties and jumped into the deep end. So that's exactly what I did. And I can even say, in hindsight, I'm not very proud of the way that I left my full time job. I literally gave them like 2 weeks notice, told them that I couldn't stay, and I never showed up to fulfill those 2 weeks. Totally burned the bridge there. I am not proud of the way that I left. They
Wow.
were good people, but it just shows you how much I just couldn't stand being at that job. Like I couldn't stay for another day. So the start of 2019, we didn't know that the world would end a year later, but I jumped in, and the first year of business, it was like jumping into a pool and not knowing how to swim. That's the
Yeah.
feeling. Floundering around, water's going into my mouth. I don't know where to grab. There's nothing to hold. And it was supposed to be this beautiful and amazing experience. That was what I had in my mind when I jumped in, but it was, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The first year was a gong show. I realized that I didn't have any of the skills that I needed in order to run a business properly. I just
Yeah.
thought you just have to be good at what you do and people will come and give you their money. I thought it was supposed to be that simple. It turns out that that's not how it works. You need to understand how to market and position yourself. You need sales skills. You need even a basic understanding of the legal system so you can have contracts and paperwork. There's a lot of things that I didn't know. So the first year was a lot of exploration for me. And very quickly, I think the biggest shock that I had going into the world of business was just how formal it was. It was very suit and tie. And everyone that I connected with when I was networking just totally looked really serious and way out of my league. I felt like a kid that walked into some adult cocktail party and I was wearing my PJs. That's the feeling that I had every time I went to an event or doing some networking thing. I felt really out of place. And looking around, I'm like, well, you guys look like you know what you're doing. You guys look like you have money. I guess I got to do that too in order to have a successful business. And like the little that I decided to follow those breadcrumbs. And even though it felt completely unnatural to me, I ended up changing the way that I showed up to fit because I thought that was the only way to do it. So, I mean, you can see me now. I have like cat headphones and I'm in a hoodie, but in the first year of business, I was like semi-formal attire, heels to every meeting, lots of makeup, like long blonde hair, spoke like a robot. I didn't have emojis in any of my texts or messages. Like it was completely devoid of any Rachel. Like I censored myself out of all of my content, out of my brand, thinking that that was what I needed to do to get big clients, like
Yeah.
look bigger than I actually am, even though I was just a solopreneur who was figuring my stuff out. And that honestly, it wasn't what my business needed, especially from a creative standpoint.
Yeah.
When you hire a creative agency, you want them to be loud and a little crazy. You kind of want that, but I didn't get that memo. I thought I needed to just suit up and people would come. And the first 3 years of my business, it was me censoring myself out of all of my content, attracting none of the people that I really wanted to work with. I got some fun projects, but I just feel like I kept showing up in a way that was out of alignment and that attracted opportunities that also weren't very aligned. And, the pandemic happened in between and it just got to this point where I stopped showing up. I
Mhm.
felt so uncomfortable with the way I was presenting myself. I felt like I was lying to people. Like, I kid you not. Like, I would speak of myself as we instead of I. Like, I had this big, shiny business brand. And I tried to be like, look at me. I'm so important. Like, I literally did that. But there was just some part of me that felt so out of line, so out of integrity that I just stopped showing up one day. I couldn't take it anymore. And when you stop showing up in business, you stop earning money, but the
Yeah.
expenses keep coming. So things started to go down, and I knew that something had to change in order for me to be okay. Like literally, the ship was sinking. It was the Titanic. Like everyone's jumping off the boat, sort of situation. And that was when I knew that I needed to change the way that I showed up. And it started with me asking myself some tough but honest questions about how do I actually want the world to see me? And
Yeah.
who am I at the core of it? And is that what people want to see? How does that fit into the grand scheme of this thing that I call a business? And as I sort of dived into those questions, I realized that a lot of the things that I had probably been censoring out were actually the parts of me that people really wanted to see. They wanted to see me step into it, but I was getting in my own way of doing that. Like, for example, as I was sort of exploring what my brand was, one of the things that I tentatively had to go into was addressing the fact that I'm really insecure about the fact that I look a lot than my age. Like I look like I just came out of high school, but I'm like budging up to 30. Like I turned 30 in November this year, but I look like I just came out of high school. And it caused me to really feel the need to dress up and prove to people I know my stuff. I am a professional and I am 110% capable of taking you to the moon if you dare to trust me. But for the
Yeah.
longest time, I just felt really insecure about that. But then I realized as I was doing my reflection, no, people love the fact that I have this young and bouncy and bubbly energy. That's why a lot of my clients are actually a lot older than me. They look at me and they're like, Rachel, I need you to inject some life back into my brand. And I know you're the person to do it because that is the energy that you bring to the table, because you're young, because you're playful. And it wasn't until I realized these things that I'm like, oh, I actually need to turn up the volume on these parts of my brand. So I made this decision to shut down my business brand, switch things over to my personal brand, dare to show my face on the internet after years of hibernation and being like, hey guys, this is me. Like, this is without trying to pretend to be important. This is me. I'm a goofball. I'm fine. I love making things. I'm a little nerdy and just to fully embrace that. And it wasn't until I made that shift that things just started to click into place. Like I had started to surround myself with more of the right people who, despite my greatest fears, loved and embraced me for everything that I was. If anything, people are like, Rachel, we want to see more pink. We want to see more cat stuff. We want to see more comics. And it was amazing. And I started to get clients who came to me despite how crazily, in my mind, I was presenting myself, who wanted that for themselves. And in a sense, in hindsight, I realized me showing up and just being like full volume at who I am, it actually gives people an automatic permission slip when we start working together to just jump into the deep end and to be as crazy as they want to be because I've already done it. There's nothing in my closet. Literally everything is out in the open. And it gives people hope that like, oh, well, if Rachel's doing it and if people like her and she's still getting business, maybe that's something that I can do too. And I find that when we show up as our most fully expressed, authentic version of ourselves, that's when we start attracting those dream clients. That's when the money actually starts coming. That's that's when a
Yeah.
lot of things start clicking into place. So that's basically the journey that it's been. And it's still evolving. Like this is I like to think that I'm just getting started, but it has been 5 years since the start of my business journey. And even though it's been really challenging, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah. No, and that's also why I wanted you to share your story because frankly, it is there's so many layers of that you uncovered that people need to hear. Like one, let's start from the beginning, right? Business is not as easy as people think it is, right? Quitting your job and starting a business, it sounds fancy, it sounds cool, it sounds sexy and whatever, but in reality, it's a lot of work, right? You're quitting one job to take on 50 because you have all
Yep.
the jobs and all the things you have to get done, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I'm getting into it with the right mindset to understand it's going to be
Yeah.
work. But then the part, the part the discovery part. where you like really lean into saying, okay, well, I don't feel like I fit in here. I have to censor myself. I have to be someone else. And I'm not even getting the kind of work that I want to get, even though I'm doing this. So what's the point? Right. That took a lot of guts to really identify for yourself. When you were going through that journey for you, what were the things that you kind of leaned into in terms of saying, okay, how do I figure out? Because you asked yourself some great questions, and you really did that well. Because again, a lot of people don't even take that step, right? So, what inspired you to take that step for yourself?
Mm. I feel like there was a period of confusion where I knew something wasn't working, but couldn't put my finger on what was wrong. The and that confusion was exactly what stopped me from showing up, because
Mhm.
when you're not sure what to say about yourself, how to introduce yourself, and even the words that you say don't feel like they're actually the full truth, but you're not sure what is the full truth, it really messes with your game when you're out there networking and meeting people. You can't make posts because you just don't know what to say. Nothing feels right and everything feels wrong, no matter how you it's like trying to put puzzle pieces together that just never fit. And
Yeah,
it got to that point where yeah, financially thinking, the things were just sinking. It was going down. I was literally watching the ship go down. And as I was just literally floundering at every opportunity that I had, I felt like I just kept fudging it up. Like every time I would have like an amazing connection, and it felt like they knew what they were doing, and I was here in this corner every time it came to me introducing myself, sharing about what it is that I do. I never felt good about what came out of my mouth when I was sharing. And every time people would be like, I love what it is that you seem like a cool person, but I could feel that everyone was always confused about what I did when they
hmm,
walked away from that conversation. And I knew that I wasn't going to get any of the right opportunities coming my way until I just really got it myself sorted out. And
yeah,
I came to realize that the confidence to show up fully, especially in like a networking situation, it doesn't come from having fancy titles or big accolades and achievements, or like, oh, you got a PhD, you have this degree, you have this thing, or you had that client. It actually just comes from really knowing who you are,
yeah,
and like without a shred of a doubt, and showing up fully owning that in a conversation. And people feel that. And I think that's something in the world of business that most people, they try to cover it up with all these fancy titles and all of the nice things that people like to have in their bio, the string of achievements. I think a lot of it covers up the fact that you have to say these things to prove to people that you're important, or is it trying to cover up the fact that you actually don't know who you are and you need to make yourself self sound important in order for people to fully trust you? And for me, the answer was, I don't actually feel like I need to share about any of those things. I just need to really understand who it is that I am, know exactly how I want to present myself, and that carries through. And people feel that when you get into a conversation with them.
yeah, 100%. And to your point earlier about the what you said was like kind of like being an authentic version of yourself and like really leaning to who you are. For me, that when I think about that, I think about the idea of frequencies. I've been doing a lot of reading about this,
Mhm.
spirituality and whatnot, in the last few years, months, and the whole vibrating at certain frequencies, right? If you're vibrating at the like a misaligned frequency for yourself, then you're going to get that frequency coming back to you, right? And then when you're getting these clients that you don't align with, that's because you're operating at that inauthentic frequency. That's not really your frequency.
Yeah.
So you're attracting is not your frequency. You're attracting something else. And then so you get these people, and they're sure nothing wrong with the people. They're nice people. They're good enough, right? They're not like bad people per se, but they don't align with you per se in terms of the style and what you're looking for. And so when
Yeah.
you lean into that and really start resonating at the frequency that's authentic to you, well, now the resonance is so much more widespread, and it's so much more effective, and it's so much louder in a good way, And so I think that's something that definitely resonated with me when I met you was that frequency that you resonate at is very authentic, and it's very the reverb, if you will, is something that you definitely, it's palpable because you can tell you're being fully you and truthfully who you are, right? So in the work you're doing now
Yeah.
with clients, what is the thing that really lights you up? Like what do you when you get a client that says that they want you to do this thing, what's that thing that you're like, oh my god, I can't wait to do this?
Absolutely. I feel like when it comes to the work that I do, people tend to focus a lot on the pretty stuff because that's the thing that they can see. It's
Mhm.
palatable. They see the results that I get for my clients, and that's usually what sucks them in. But very honestly, what lights me up is the conversations that I have with my clients about what their brand identity is. And I get to ask the big questions. So tell me, who are you? How do you want the world to see you? What's something that you want to show to the world that you never managed to do? Maybe you were too scared or you just couldn't figure out how to do it. But let's explore. What would it look like if we tried to incorporate that into your brand? What are you about? What are your beliefs? Who are your people? If you could have anything in the world, what would that be? And really dig until we get to the bottom. And I like to use the analogy where every single person has a sparkle to them. And for some people, they spend most of their lives trying to cover that up because the
Mm.
world told them that you need to be a certain way. And the work that I do, it's kind of like an archaeologist. We're just going to dig until we find that thing because every person that I've met through networking, I could feel that everyone's a really cool person. Like you are not robot professional face in front of your best friends and family, in front of your partner, with your dog or your cat. No, like you are not like that. But for whatever reason, we feel like we need to mask up and cover that sparkle when we get into a professional setting. And that actually severely undermines our ability to shine through and attract those right people. So, the favorite part that I have about my work is I just get to go to that space where we find that sparkle for my clients and just to see them like have that light bulb moment of like, oh my God, like you mean people actually want to know that I'm crazy about cats? I'm like, yes, like that's cat people will be your people or whatever it is. It's about helping them realize that the thing that they might have been trying to cover up or has always been a prominent part of themselves that they never found a way to fit into their business is actually going to become the magnet that pulls all of the people, the right customers, and all of the right people into their world. So I would say it's definitely the discovery process as I help my clients figure out what is the thing that makes them special. And then, of course, the fun part is turning that into something that people can see. And then and the cool thing is now that they have that vision, they're very clear in their head about what they're trying to put out. Then as we work together to turn that into something visible, like their logo, let's pick your colors. What are the right fonts? What does your signature style actually look like? And then as they see it as they see it coming to life, that's where like things just really start clicking into place. And yeah, by the end of the transformation, just seeing them show up online with so much more confidence. Like you literally feel like they show up as a completely different person. They're actually excited to share their stuff afterwards. It's like you took off the filter and you're like, oh, this is what you're like. This is what who you actually are. And like that's the most rewarding feeling because that's when the results start coming for them. Now the right people are finally starting to come their way. The money's starting to flow. And it's because how awesome they are already in real life is finally being reflected on the way that they're showing up online. It's just about connecting the dots for my clients.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that comes across, right? And then talking to you, you're definitely a people person, and in the way you interact with people, it is very authentic. So being able to bring that out from them and helping them to be authentic, that's also, frankly, it's beyond what people think of when they think of branding, right? They don't think of that side of things, and they think of designers as, this people that build websites or they build logos or they do this stuff, right? They don't necessarily think about them in terms of really diving into someone's personality and who their authentic self is. One of the theories that I have that I work with my clients on is an identity theory, and I like what you said about who you are with your dog and who you are with this person or that person, because it lets out different parts of identity, right? And then you don't
Yeah.
always let out every single part of your identity all the time, and I think part
Yeah.
of that's intentional. I think that makes sense to a degree, and I think it should be a choice, right? It shouldn't be I feel like I
Absolutely.
have to do this. I have to censor myself. It's just that I'm choosing to censor myself, or this part of myself, because I don't think this person's going to align with what I'm dealing with, and that's okay in some situations. But you shouldn't feel forced
Yeah.
or confined, right? And what you described sounds like you're almost like
Exactly.
confined to this box, right? And I think
Exactly.
that's really powerful for folks to hear, especially business as business owners.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I feel like it is so important for us to realize that you get to choose how you present yourself. And if you're really intentional about how you show up, you're actually able to be in full control over how people see you. And I
Mhm.
think that's a worry that a lot of people have in your heads. Oh, what are people thinking? What are they thinking about this thing that I just posted up that I feel super insecure about? You actually feel fully in control over the way people see you because you know that you were completely intentional about what you were putting out and that it was a choice. You didn't choose, like, if you choose not to share something, there's an intention behind it. It's not
Right.
that out of fear that you choose to censor something. It's just, it wasn't appropriate for me to share based on what I was trying to communicate. And just
Exactly.
helping people figure out the nuance of that, I think is really important.
Yeah, and exactly. It is that nuance between choosing and feeling confined, right? And having someone else choose for
Exactly.
them. So, no,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah.
So, what's next for you? Like in terms of what are you excited about coming up down the pipeline for you as you're working with your different clients and living into the next year or so?
Yeah, what I'm actually really excited for is to form a lot of strategic partnerships with people because even when it comes to the way that my business has evolved over the years, I think every creative agency owner goes through this phase where they realize, like, oh, the world of marketing is so vast. My clients have so many needs. And the initial, I mean, my inner control freak in the first few years said, I have to do everything for my clients, even if those things aren't within my zone of genius. So up until actually very recently, I provided like the full scale branding service where I would do the strategy and the messaging and the websites and the social and the visuals. And it was like a five that I was trying to pack into one role. And after burning out at the end of last year, where I literally gave myself a kidney infection by trying to
Oh,
do
wow.
all of these things for my clients, I ended up making the decision to let go of a lot of the bells and whistles that I provided in my services and just focus on the conversations, the identity conversations with my clients, and then just helping them translate that into visuals. So, because it's so simple now, it opens up a lot of opportunities for me to form strategic partnerships with people to fill in those gaps because a brand is a puzzle. There are a lot of pieces that need to fit together for you to see the bigger. And I only help my clients with understanding what that picture is supposed to be and then helping them with the visual component. But there's still the question of, well, what are the words that you're going to use to,
Mm.
like in your brand voice, to communicate your message? What is your message? What about the website? Someone's got to get it set up. And because I would say I'm happily retired from offering those as services, it creates a lot of room for me to be partnering up with people where those things are their superpowers. So I'm really excited to be meeting a lot of people in the world of marketing where they provide those peripheral services. And also, because now things are much more simpler with my business, I'm actually excited to be focusing on my long term goal of building my personal brand as an artist. And it took a lot for me to get to that point where I could even say that in public. For the longest time, I felt weird introducing myself as an artist because, entrepreneurs are going to be like, oh, wow, like starving artist, eh? Like, you want to, do you make commissions off of Fiverr or something? Like, I was so scared of sending across the wrong message when I tell people that. But if you ask me, like, in my heart of hearts, the reason why I'm building my business is not to build some big agency where I'm going to manage people and become distanced from my craft. That is the last thing that I want. What I actually want is to do the thing that I love for a living, get so freaking good at what I do that I'm going to land big partnership brand deals with like Nike and Adidas and co-brand stuff together with them, with my art and with my signature style, and get my brand out there in that way. And just make things that I feel make the world a better place, that give people the hope that you don't have to be some polished, perfect, that doesn't exist, like, I want to create things that help people see that you can be nice but bold. You can be strong but soft. Like, there is two sides of the coin for every single person. And a lot of the work that I do with my branding and with my art, I want people to see that you can be all of those things. And it's okay to show the side of you that you might consider to be the dark side, the dark side of the coin. But that's when you show that, that's when people actually fully love you and embrace you for who you are. And that's when you show up the most powerfully. So I want to create stuff that helps people step further into that for themselves and just see what's possible. And I'm excited to have space to work on that in this upcoming year.
That's super exciting. And I love to hear that. And especially the part you said about the darkness, the dark side of yourself, right? Like people are tend to be afraid of the shadow, like with the psychological term, whatever, like the shadow, dark side or stuff, whatever you want to call it. But it's still part of ourselves, right? It's still part of who we are. And it is an influence in everything we do in some way or another. And so when people
Yeah.
try to avoid it, there's this whole idea what you resist persists, right? And so if you're trying to push it away, it's going to fight back. But instead of that, when it's like you said, embrace that because it's part of you, and especially as an artist, like the there's a movie, it's a Hindi movie, it's called Rockstar, really cool movie. Um, it's I do a lot of movie references, this, so I'm a huge nerd, but digress for a second. The story's really cool. It's about this guy who wants to become a rock star, and he ends up he's like singing on the street trying to promote himself and trying to get people to listen to his music. And this guy, he's good. He's got a great voice. And the guy even says, he's like, listen, your voice is awesome. You're really talented. You're a great musician. You play really good. You play the guitar really well. But your music has no soul behind it. He's like, you need to go
Mhm.
out there, fall in love, and get hurt, and then come back, and your music's gonna have more edge to it, and it's gonna change the way you sing. And he didn't get
Yeah.
it. He didn't understand. And then he goes out, he falls in love. It's a Hindi movie, so it's all about love. But his music comes, he shoots through the rocket, like a rocket through the charts, and he's like number one in the country, and like goes crazy. And like it's he becomes like essentially a tortured artist, right? I'm not saying
Mhm.
to necessarily go to that extreme, but the idea being he had to embrace his shadow to give the art that edge that the people to
Mhm.
appreciate it, right? And
Yeah.
so that's really powerful, I think, what you shared.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's something that I worked really hard to incorporate into my brand. Where when I did my recent rebrand, I was very intentional about the way that I constructed my logo. Where the two words that I had in my brain was, I want this to be cute, but I want it to be badass, and I want it to have a good blend of both of those things. So if you look at my logo, it's like this graffiti hand lettering. It's this the cat is an icon, and it's a princess cat. There's like a little crown on its head, but its eyes are X's and it's got a battle scar, and there's like some tears coming out one side of one of the eyes. And I wanted to find a way to capture and express the duality of all of those things. I'm like, you can be a princess, but I've been through some really tough fights. I've been through some serious, can I swear on
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
shit? Okay. I've been through some
Okay, I thought you were gonna
serious
really swear. You said shit. Shit's not really a curse word in my world, so I don't
okay,
care.
so just saying, I want to be mindful. But I've
I
been
appreciate
through
it.
some serious shit, and but that's a part of me. I want to wear these scars proudly, but I don't ever want to let go of my roots of who I actually am. And it was so fun coming up with like a fun way to show and express that. And I want to find a way to do that for other people too, because we all have a hard side and we all have a soft side. And I think in order for people to fully see you, they need to see and understand the full spectrum, and you could be as intentional as you want to be in how you present that. So it's not like we're giving your away all your secrets to the world. It's just about giving people an idea and perspective of, oh, you are all of these things. So they know what to expect when they interact with you. That's basically it.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. And the work you're doing is definitely. I mean, folks out there could definitely use it more often than they think, even themselves. So, as we're wrapping up on time here, I wanted to ask you the last question I told you about beforehand, which is for you in your journey so far, inspiration wise, right? What's been the biggest inspiration for you, or multiple things, right? It could be a person, it could be a book, TV, movie, comic book, whatever, right? For nerds like us, what's been the inspiration for you along the journey?
Funny enough, I ask myself this question a lot, and especially in the world of just creating things, we always get inspiration from places. And the funniest thing is as I've been along on my journey, I drew a lot of the references from the things that I didn't want to be. So if we're looking at
Mm,
the process of elimination, I tried to explore every possible combination of what I could be based on, oh, that person's got something super cool looking. Let me try that. Oh, Nope, that didn't work for me. Oh, let's try this. Nope, that didn't work for me. And after I basically went through my list and crossed off all of the possible things that I could have presented myself as, super polished, super aggressive, super like know it all, like speaker, professional, like what's it, and all of those things. I crossed off all of those things, and I came to realize that the version of me that I really want to present to myself is actually very close to the version of me that I was when I was in high school.
Hmm.
As I sit and reflect on who I was when I was like, seriously, not a care in the world, art kid through and through. I was obsessed with anime shows and certain games like Kingdom Hearts. I wore whatever the hell that I wanted to, even though it literally made zero fashion sense. Like I was like the emo skater girl in high school for perspective. So I
Well,
would wear
fashion's
these
stupid anyway.
big, yeah, like my heroes growing up. Like I was obsessed with Avril Lavigne's music. She was like
Mm.
the emo skater girl. I love the edge in her songs. I wore like chunky DC shoes, like those skater shoes.
Yep.
I wore like big hoodies, and me being obsessed with Kingdom Hearts, I had like zippers all over everything. Like I just there's certain things that I loved, and I was so unapologetic about the way that I showed up. And as I crossed off all the things that I realized I didn't want to be as I went through the world of business. And when I sat down to do that exercise of asking myself who I actually am and how I want to present that to the world, I came to the conclusion that my high school self and the way that I showed up when there was nothing to lose. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anybody. I was definitely weird. Looking back at my pictures, I'm like, oh God, she needs help with her fashion. Like this girl needs help. But the core and essence of that, I wanted to capture that and bring that into my business, because that is the energy and the flow that I want to bring with me when I work with my clients, when I connect with people. And the cat headphones are a part of it. All of the nerdy things you see in my backdrop are a part of it. And it is actually drawing in the right people. So yeah, it's an interesting answer, but I would say my high school self, I used that a lot as reference.
No, that's great, and it's I don't think it's a I think it's a perfect answer, frankly. I mean, like I said, there's no right answer to that question. That's why I ask it, because I
Yeah,
think what I want to highlight with that question with everybody is that everyone takes inspiration from different places in different ways, and
yeah,
the thing is, anyone can be an inspiration to anyone else, and you can be an inspiration to yourself and who you want to be, and you can also look at things as negative inspiration. Like I don't ever want to be like X, right? And that's
yeah,
honestly for a lot of people, it's more important to do that than it is to do the opposite, right? Because I think that sometimes there are things you want to stay away from. Like for me personally, I want to stay away from the trope of being one of these online Instagram coaches, right? Because they're full of
oh
shit.
God.
Um, and
Yeah.
I'm never gonna if I ever post a picture of myself on a beach being like live, laugh, love, you have permission to
Oh
I
God.
will pay for your flight to fly down here, slap me in the face, and then fly back. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, but I think there's a shift in the culture of the online space now where people actually want to see real people. We're
Yeah.
tired of the over photoshopped, hyper idealized images that we see on social media. What people are actually drawn to is real people, real stories. They want to hear the shit that you're going through so that they can
These
be
are
like,
real bags.
"Ooh." Yeah, it's just they want to see the real things. And honestly, like even though I have the ability to hyper Photoshop all of my images, like I was like actually when I was working at the marketing company as a full-time designer, part of the work that I did was to Photoshop models that go onto like
Mm.
packaging design for health products. I was like photoshopping the models for like a face mask product. Do you have any idea how much airbrushing I had to do? I spent 8 hours polishing someone's face until it looked cleaner than a Barbie doll's face. Like I have the ability to do that, but I choose not to for myself. Where I'm like, oh, that's a pimple, whatever. Like I guess you could see how stressed I am, or whatever it is. I choose to show that because that's what people connect to. People connect to real people, and that's actually more attractive than the pretty plasticky images that you see all over magazines.
Yeah, because it's fake. I mean, at the end of the day, like it's more important to be real and be authentic than it is to show up some facade, which again goes into the theme of everything we talked about so far. So I love that.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. I really, really appreciate it. Anyone who wants to reach out to Rachel, I highly recommend you do. If you're even considering a rebrand, please talk to this girl. Phenomenal, phenomenal person. An amazingly talented designer. Check out her website. Everything will be below in the description, but it's racheltlee.com, correct? Yep.
Yes.
So yeah, Rachel, again, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Take care, everybody. Stay safe and see you next time.